Hello guys, this is Mortaza from A Coder's Journey. Welcome to another episode of this Clean Code in C# training series. And I hope that you guys have watched the previous videos. We talked a lot about, the different things we need to be aware of when we want to choose a good name for, the different code elements like methods, properties, classes, events, and so on. From this video onwards, I'm going to talk about, clean methods and how to make our methods clean and what it takes for a method to become clean. That's why I have created a new method, a new project in this solution. I've declared, I have chosen the name methods for this, console project, because in this project and over the next few videos, we're going to talk specifically about, clean methods. I think first and foremost, for a method to become clean, you need to think about the number of lines in that method. More often than not, methods which have more lines of code in their bodies need some refactorings. They're not clean. They're probably doing more than one thing. And of course, when there are a lot of lines of code in a method, it is difficult to make heads or tails of what that method is doing. It is difficult to understand, the responsibility of that method. So I think the most important thing you need to think about, you need to consider when you want to, make your methods clean, is to check the number of lines in the body of that method. Now, in order to, drive home my point, I'm going to create a new class in this project. I'm going to call this class, let's say, person, right? And I'm going to, declare a public. And then I'm going to very quickly say string first name, right? String last name. And string int, let's say, age, right? And then I'm going to say I've got a method. You know what? I've got a method called save person details on disk. And I'm going to do something here, right? So first and foremost, this name I think is very descriptive, and it shows clearly what we are going to do. We are going to save the details of a person on disk, and we're probably going to do just one thing, right? So we're not just like saving and then reporting, or saving and then, sending an email. We're just doing one operation, which is saving the details of a person on disk. Now, suppose in this method, for example, you have like, these number of lines, and you have written a lot of code. First and foremost, as I told you at the very beginning of this video, this is a very good sign that this method is not clean. So it is usually, for example, said that if when you come across a method, if you need to scroll in order to read the whole body of a method, if you need to scroll, it usually means that that method is not clean. So you need to reduce the number of lines. And one of the things that you should look out for is whether that method is doing more than one thing or not. More often than not, the methods which have more than one responsibility, they are forced to have, more lines of code. So it is better to take out some, different parts of that method, extract some different, more modular, methods in order to make that method shorter and cleaner. And remember, we favor more, methods, but smaller ones. So for example, instead of a one big method, I prefer to have several smaller methods, because they are more maintainable, they are easier to change, they are, easier to understand, they are more modular. So instead of having one big chunk of code in one single method, try to break that chunk into different logical parts and then introduce new methods. And the body size, the number of lines of code in a method is not the only indication as to whether a method is clean or not. There are other, things that you need to think about. For example, the number of indentations. So if, for example, you've got a for loop here, and then in this loop, you're gonna check a condition, and then for each, item in a collection, again, you're gonna do a while. So these number of indentations, which of course make your code very difficult to understand, these are more often than not, signs that this method is not clean. So if you have a lot of indentations, this means that this method is not clean and it needs some refactoring. So the first one was the body size, the number of lines of code that you've got in a method. The other one was, the number of indentations. And another thing which is very important, as I told you before, is whether that method is doing more than one thing or not. So look at, for example, the name. Sometimes it is difficult to come up with a name for a method which is doing more than one thing. And if, for example, you have and in the name of a method, it means that that method is doing more than one thing. So you need to extract some pieces of code and try to keep that method responsible for doing only one thing. Another very important concept that you need to be aware of is abstraction levels. So if you've got a method, for example, that is working on different abstraction levels, that method is certainly not clean. And by abstraction methods, let me give you an example. If you've got a method which, for example, works with the file system, reads a file and writes to a file, and then that same method sends out an email, right? So the abstraction level has changed. And then this method goes to the database and fetches some records and then displays those records in the user interface of your, application. Again, the abstraction level was changed, right? So from the database, you went all the way to the UI. The abstraction level changed. This certainly means that that method is not clean, is doing more than one thing, and probably the number of lines in the method body is very high, so you need to reduce it, and you need to write your methods in a way that they work at the same abstraction level. So this is, I think, very important to always think about the abstraction levels, if that method is working at different abstraction levels, or if it is working just with the user interface, the database, the network, the file system, and so on and so forth. So these were just some of the indicators that you guys should be on the lookout for to detect the methods which are not clean, and try to then apply some refactorings in order to make those methods cleaner. The size of a method, if you need to scroll up and down, the fact that method is doing more than one thing, the fact that that method, for example, has many indentation levels, and working on different abstraction levels. And by the way, I just want to tell you guys that, for example, for the body size, for the number of lines of a method, do not try to reduce the number of lines of a method by compressing the code on single line. For example, suppose I have a method which has, I don't know, like 50 lines of code, and I want to reduce the number of lines, right? So what I'm trying to do is to just, for example, instead of putting one statement on each line, I'm adding 3 statements, for example, or 4 statements on each line. This is, of course, something very ridiculous, but I have seen this happen sometimes. So try not to do that. And do not, sacrifice readability for the body size of a method, because when you do this, you are reducing, the readability of your code. You're just, compressing everything, on a single line. This is, of course, not the solution for a method to, a method who has many lines of code. I'm gonna, stop here. We talked about the different, indications, the different signs which tell us that a method is not clean. Be on the lookout for them. Go over your code and see if you've got any methods that have those symptoms. And for methods, they are very important to be clean, because more often than not, the big chunk of your code are put in a method. So properties, events, and so on, they do not have such a responsibility as methods. They do not have the same significance, the same level of significance as methods. So what I'm trying to say is that if you improve the quality of your code in your methods, more often than not, you are improving the overall, quality of your code base. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Stay tuned for my upcoming videos. Share it with a friend. If you have any other indications which tell us that a method is not clean, please leave a comment in the comment section. Tell me about it. And I'll see you in the next episode. Subscribe to A Coder's Journey, and activate that bell so that you do not miss out on my upcoming videos. Take care. Till later. Bye-bye.